Using science inquiry in elementary classrooms. What is science inquiry? The National Science Education Standards and most state standards promote the inquiry process in science. So why the science inquiry process? When engaging in inquiry, students describe objects and events, ask questions, construct explanations, test those explanations against current scientific knowledge, and communicate their ideas to others. We need to think like scientists in the pursuit of understanding. These elementary teachers share their strategies and practices in teaching science using the science inquiry process. On the left is Lexi Donahue, who will be speaking first. And to the right is Danielle Hart. Both fourth grade teachers use science inquiry. How does teaching using science inquiry happen in your classroom?
We really frame our thinking around the question, and we give them a chance to test and make mistakes and build actual models. And then as they start to see what works, we can build the language and the vocabulary around that to help with connecting, okay, what did our models show? And then what does that mean for the bigger idea?
And that's something we're always talking about as a school is you have this question that you're unsure of, and you're working through that by saying, what can I figure out? How can I test it? What other professionals have done some work around this topic that I can learn from? And then how do I combine all of that information in order to reach a conclusion and then be able to share that with others?
Looking back, what do you wish you had known in preparing to teach using science inquiry?
Something I wish I'd known before teaching inquiry science that I know now is that kids don't need to know the answer to what we're learning when we're doing the experiment, that the observing and work inside the experiment holds their attention better when you haven't already told them why. And the why makes more sense when they have the shared experience to connect and talk with.
So one thing that I wish I knew before I started the inquiry process is how sticky it was going to be as the adult in the room who often wants to deliver the quote right answer. It felt uncomfortable. And so knowing that from the start for me has been something that I've wanted to support the students in and allow them the grace that it's not always about getting the right answer and it's not always about getting it the first try. And so that is definitely something that I had to be okay with and had to learn from.
What advice do you have for teachers and coaches beginning to use the science inquiry process?
They should give themselves the time and space to get organized because the setup of materials takes a little bit of time sometimes when there's a lot of hands-on stuff that kids are going to be doing. And the room might get loud and messy, and that's okay, and there's a lot of learning that's happening in those moments.
I think the advice that I would give to first-time inquiry-based science teachers is to give yourself the space to fail. It's okay to try again. Modeling that for students and being human and being vulnerable in front of them is really such a great way to model the inquiry-based process of saying, okay, we don't have the answer right out of the gate. We have a question that we need to answer and I'm not sure yet. So we're gonna try and try again.
Key takeaways. Science inquiry is questioning, testing, and building science knowledge. Provide models of thinking out loud through questions about science concepts. Inquiry and discussion are key. To learn more, visit bit.ly/cast-oasis-project. CAST, until learning has no limits. Ideas that work. U.S. Office of Special Education Programs. The contents of this video were developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, #H327S210014. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education. You should not assume endorsement by the federal government. Project Officer, Anita Vermeer.